Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for September 6th, 11 a.m. Here's the graphical tropical weather outlook graphic from the National Hurricane Center showing three systems out in the Atlantic. It's pretty busy out there. We have Hurricane Michael out in the far east Atlantic, and this system has become a major hurricane out here, but that's going to be shredded pretty quickly out here due to this trough in the East Atlantic. We have Leslie south of Bermuda. It looks like the system will pass just east of Bermuda, and then we have the remnants of Isaac, which went up like this and then hung a U-turn and went back down into the Gulf, and there's a 40% chance of development according to the National Hurricane Center, but the system is poorly organized, and the models don't really do much with it as they take it generally off to the east towards the Florida Peninsula. So we'll watch it, and we'll get to touch on each one of these. Let's go ahead and take a look at the water vapor loop and take a look at what's happening out here. First of all, Leslie does not look very good this morning. We have a upper level low to the north, and we have an upper level low in the Bahamas. And this one in the Bahamas is just incredible upper level low. It's basically shredding everything because here's the upper level low right in the Bahamas, and we have the winds on the backside of this out of the southwest that's kind of chopping off Leslie out here a little bit, and then we have another upper level low to the north of it, and that's causing a lot of wind shear out of the southwest over Leslie. And we also have the remnants of Isaac out here, but the northwest winds behind the upper level low are shredding Isaac as well, which incidentally, if this were to be named, it would be named Nadine. Now, I have a disagreement with the Hurricane Center about this because I believe that if a system is a system and moves inland and it moves back out over the water, it should be named the same storm because it is the same system, but they are insisting that this is going to be named Nadine if it does develop. The models don't really do that, but we'll see what happens when if that happens. And then, of course, we have this very powerful hurricane out here, Michael, that's going to be dragged off to the northeast in response to a trough. But let's go ahead and watch it one more time. And you see that upper level low just shredding everything. And I believe, even though the National Hurricane Center forecast calls for Leslie to strengthen to a Category 2 hurricane while passing just east of Bermuda, I think this thing's going to struggle, and we might not even see Category 1 passing by that island, much less Category 2. We'll have to see what the indications are from the National Hurricane Center over the next 24 to 36 hours. But right now, it does not look very healthy. Let's take a look at the animation on the HurTrack program. And here's our position going into September 8th in the evening. And then if we start the animation, you'll see that the system passes its closest approach now. This keeps shifting east and east with every run from the National Hurricane Center forecast track. And now we show it 112 miles east of Bermuda at its closest approach. Now, if this happens, they're going to get they're going to get gusts to tropical storm force in Bermuda, but they're not going to get that sustained area, which is the aqua circle right here. And notice that stays just offshore. Now, the countdown clock at Hurricane City has been deactivated, and normally we activate it when the area that's in the featured city is going to be inside that aqua circle. Then the countdown clock is activated. And the last time we had the clock going, it was around 2 days and some odd hours before the tropical storm force winds would arrive in Bermuda. And this is going out to September 9th at around 12. Actually, that's, like in the afternoon on, this would be on Sunday, I believe. The September 9th would be, on Sunday, that this system would be passing well east of Bermuda. So we'll keep an eye on that. Current feature is Bermuda. You can get all the radar and the localized information, weather observations, and everything else for Bermuda. But it looks like right now there's not going to be any hurricane warning show. There's not going to be any coverage of this because it's going to go pass off to the east. But the news stations, newspapers, and all the resources in Bermuda are on top of this. They're watching this closely, and they're going to take action if need be. They have all the power companies ready to go and everything else. All right, let's take a look at the upper level winds in 48 hours, and this is important because as I just stated with that upper level low, look at the winds here, upwards of 30 knots of southwesterly shear that are going to be up near Bermuda, and with the system passing in that general direction, it's although when systems are moving parallel to the shear, it doesn't affect them as much, but in this case the system should be moving more north and the wind shear is going to be coming out of the southwest. So I think this thing's going to get shredded a little bit more than what the forecast is from the National Hurricane Center. I could be wrong. Maybe this will rebound and become a Category 2. I just don't see it personally happen, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. Again, here's that upper level low with the University of Wisconsin shear maps, and you can see that thing is just gigantic out here. It's just swallowing up everything. You got the northerly winds affecting former Isaac out here, and then you've got the a little bit of a high pressure ridge to the southwest of Leslie out here, and the wind shear continuing with the combination of the high pressure to the southwest and the upper level low in the Bahamas. It's kind of accelerating that wind shear, and that's why I think Leslie is struggling this morning and may continue to do so for the next 24 hours or so. And I don't really give much hope to the system in the Gulf out here. I think the wind shear is just too strong. Now, however, the upper level low may retrograde off to the northeast here or just wash out altogether and allow former Isaac to regenerate. But most of the models I've seen just keep it as a very weak system moving across the peninsula and then out in the North Atlantic. Now, while I have this map up with all the scribble on it, what's going to happen down the road? There are some indications. The GFS is indicating that we're going to see a system follow in behind. It could become Nadine or whatever the next name is on the list out here. We think we have Oscar behind that, and we'll see. But one of these systems is supposed to be here, and then eventually that too is going to find its way to a weakness and move north into the Atlantic. Now, what happens when you get into mid-September, late September? It's very hard for these systems to make it all the way across from Africa. Due to all the troughs and cold fronts that come off the United States, it's very difficult for systems to make it all the way to the U.S. So I think we only have about another week or two before the Cape Verde season is going to be shut down, or there's just simply all going to rehook out into the North Atlantic. Sometimes you can get a really weak tropical wave that'll make it into the Caribbean, and we'll have to watch that closely. We'll see if that pans out. But it looks like right now, it's if you do not like hurricanes and don't want hurricanes to come, it's good news because there's a really long range doesn't show very much of anything threatening the United States. All right, here are here's the heat content map from NOAA, and you can see that the waters that are warm enough to support a hurricane, 80 degrees or warmer, are well below the surface. These red areas and yellow areas, very warm temperatures, way deep below the surface. Now, when a hurricane's moving very slowly, it tends to upwell the colder waters from deeper down and bring them to the surface, which at that point the hurricane starts to weaken because the cold waters are being brought to the surface. Notice up here where Leslie is right now, there is none of that. So we have what's called upwelling going on. The colder waters are being brought to the surface. That in combination with those strong southwesterly winds, in my opinion, don't really support much strengthening with this system, if at all. If it was down in these areas, it might have a better chance because it's got some warmer waters to work with below the surface. But right now, that doesn't look like that is the case. Look at the wind. Look at the 12-foot seas on this system. This is a gigantic wind field with Leslie. And even if this misses Bermuda completely, there's going to be some very high seas. I wouldn't recommend anybody take a boat out near Bermuda because it's just going to be very high winds. In fact, if I switch sources here, you can see the buoy that's south of Bermuda right now where Leslie is, and you can see that actually that's the model. Let me get rid of that. This buoy is showing 42 knots gusting to 56 knots, and the seas are 27.6 feet where Leslie is right now, and the water temperature is 81.1, and that's important because when they get below 80, it's really difficult for a system to maintain, and it's just been moving so slow that it's bringing all that cooler water to the surface. While I have this map up, I wanted to show you the models at Hurricane City. And the best performer right now is the COTC. This is the Navy, a version of one of the Navy models. It's a consensus model by the Navy. And this is the best performer right now, and that has it going well off to the east. Second best performer is the interpolated version of that same model, meaning additional information put in. The third best performer is the G12, which is the this is the GFDL ensemble model, GO12, and the fifth best performer is the LGEM, which is the Now that one is slipping my mind. The LGEM is the, it's a, I believe the one of the GFS ensemble versions. But anyway, nevertheless, while I have this model up, even though the model is not represented here on the map, the GFS model, the GFS ensembles, have all been east of Bermuda the entire time, whereas the more historically reliable models, such as the ECMWF, has had it going west of Bermuda the entire time. And now all the models are starting to fall in line with the GFS thinking, which was east of Bermuda. So once again, the GFS has outshined the other models this year in predicting early on that this was going to go east of Bermuda, whereas some of the other models like the Canadian and the UK Met, which continues to still show it going west of Bermuda, and the ECMWF, which has now joined the GFS model east of Bermuda, were wrong originally. So the GFS once again outshined the other models. Meanwhile, the GFDL and the HWRF models, the tropical models, had it going right over Bermuda or just west of Bermuda. So GFS once again, if this track pans out going east of Bermuda, you got to give hands down the GFS model has been the best performer so far this hurricane season. We also had the recording available of the Hurricane Isaac landfall in southeast Louisiana. Myself and Bill Phillips, we were tag teaming throughout the early morning hours into the afternoon as Isaac moved on shore. There's a different assortment of webcams and different angles. This cam right here, the Slide-L cam, that thing stayed up through the eye of the hurricane. That stayed up through the entire thing. We were able to watch it all going down. Not Slide-L, I'm sorry, the Homa cam. And you'll see that coming up here in a minute. There it is. This is the Homa cam. This is the cam that stayed up during the hurricane, before, during, and after the eye passage. So a great job by keeping that cam up by somebody in Homa, Louisiana. But anyway, that recording is up to archive subscribers. It's about 40 minutes long. We took about 5 to 6 hours of video and sliced it down to the most interesting moments of Isaac as it made landfall in southeast Louisiana. Here's a webcam from Bermuda right now. These can be found at Hurricane City by clicking on our current feature, Bermuda, and there's assorted webcams. Not that many cams. There's no streaming live webcams for Bermuda, unfortunately, but this is from the Weather Service in Bermuda, and there's a power outage button that tells you the latest power information and weather observations and radio stations and everything you need to know to keep track of what's going on in Bermuda as Leslie approaches. Alright, well that's it for now. I'll be back in a few days, unless something drastically changes with Leslie where it's going to hit. We'll be back in a few days with another tropical update. If this system changes course, it's going to hit Bermuda. I'll be back with another update in a day or two as we will prepare for the hurricane warning show, but it looks like that is unlikely to happen. Anyway, that's it for now. If you're living in Bermuda, just secure your loose objects. Get ready for some gusty, strong tropical storm force winds at this time. And that should be about it. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.